I recently asked AI to analyze a bunch of my client notes to identify what the top 10 issues were with ERP systems and ERP implementations. What were the answers and what did AI tell me? That's what we're going to talk about here today. My name is Eric Kimberling. I'm the CEO of Third Stage Consulting Group. We're an independent consulting firm that helps clients throughout the world with their digital transformation and ERP software implementation journeys. One of the things I've learned to do over the years is to take very detailed, copious notes anytime I talk to any client or any potential client. In fact, if you go through my notes that I save in the cloud, I've got hundreds, if not over 1,000 different organizations I've talked to over the years. And when I'm going through that process, I've always thought that there's a lot of good information, a lot of good gems and nuggets of information, a lot of qualitative knowledge, a lot of quantitative data points within those notes. But I've always struggled with how do I make sense of it all? How do I consolidate it all? I've got a lot of it in my brain, I remember a lot of it, but how do I analyze it in a more meaningful way? So I turned to ChatGPT, I turned to AI to analyze my notes, and I took the last few dozen organizations that I had talked to that were about to go through an ERP implementation, and I wanted to know not necessarily what the problems were with their implementations, because most of them had not yet started their implementations, but I wanted to understand, why do most organizations go through ERP implementations? What are the biggest challenges they're trying to solve? So what I want to do today is share with you those results. I'll do a little countdown here of the top 10 things that AI told me and taught me about my own notes and my own conversations with several dozen different organizations throughout the world. Now, as I go through this countdown, I'm going to start at number 10, which is the lower priority, work my way up to number 1, which may or may not surprise you. Number 1 is the most important or the most common theme that I've heard in my conversation so far. Before we dive too far into today's content, I want to share a little bit of information about Third Stage Consulting and who we are. Third Stage Consulting Group is an independent, technology agnostic provider of consulting services to help clients through their digital transformations. We help with digital strategy and software selection, as well as implementation planning. And during implementation, we provide services related to program management, organizational change, business process improvement, as well as enterprise architecture. These are just some of the services we provide. We have offices in North America as well as Europe and Asia Pacific. So if you'd like to learn more, I encourage you to check out our resource center, which includes a number of resources that will help you through your digital transformation, and you can access that for free using the QR code here or the links below. You can also reach out to me directly if you'd like to discuss your digital transformation and brainstorm ideas on how to improve where you're headed on your journey. Now let's jump back into today's content. Number 10 on my list of the things that AI taught me about my client conversations in recent years is that one of the biggest reasons why organizations implement new ERP software is because of financial considerations. There's something wrong with their current systems, it's costing them too much money to maintain their current system, and it's also a matter of looking at what kind of business value they're missing out on. So there's a heavy financial component here of what organizations are looking at and looking for when they replace their ERP systems. There's also the business case aspect of this as well. Many organizations are looking at a business case to figure out how much are they spending on their current environment, what could they spend in the future, and more importantly, what would the business value be if they did so. So financial considerations, financial justifications are number 10 on the list of the most common themes we hear from organizations that are implementing new technology. Number 9 on our list of the most common issues that organizations are trying to address with ERP software is data-driven decision-making. Organizations struggle to get the data they need to make informed decisions to run their business, or they have outdated information that forces them to make decisions based on old information. So those are some of the biggest challenges that organizations face. They don't have access to data, they don't have visibility, and they certainly don't have good reporting and good business intelligence and good AI models to help them make better decisions because they just don't have access to those tools. So data-driven decisions are number 9 on our list of the most common issues that organizations want to address with their ERP software. It seems as though global regulations throughout the world are changing and advancing and evolving at a rapid pace. Maybe not quite as fast as technology, but fast enough to where organizations are finding that their old technology isn't helping them stay in sync and in compliance with some of these regulations. So you look at regulations like the data privacy rule, GDPR in Europe, or you look at changing safety and regulatory rules in the US and Asia Pacific and all over the world. There's all these different regulations that are changing. You also have Europe, which is imposing a number of ESG rules for the environment and tracking environmental impact. So the regulations are sort of putting strains on technologies that organizations are using today, which is forcing them to reconsider their legacy systems to look to more modern systems that will help them be in compliance with some of these regulations. So regulatory compliance is number 8 on our list of the most common reasons and the most common issues that organizations are trying to solve with ERP systems. Number 7 on our list of the most common issues that organizations struggle with their ERP systems is strategic decision making. They're looking for ways to make better decisions with the systems they have. And I talked a little bit earlier about data and the importance of data and how organizations struggle with data, and that is part of it, but it's not just data that they're struggling with, it's making decisions and knowing what to do with that data, and that's what we're referring to here. And it's not only their business performance that they're struggling with, they're also struggling with how to make strategic decisions as it relates to the project. How do we know which kind of ERP system is going to be best for us? How do we know how to deploy it? How do we know how to mitigate the risks associated with it? How do we get the most business value out of our ERP software? All of these strategic considerations are one of the big issues that organizations are trying to solve with their new ERP software. Number 6 on the list is the human factor. Anything to do with people, employees, organizational change management, culture, training, adoption, all that stuff falls into this bucket of the human factor. Now, it's only number 6 on our list because all the notes that I plugged into AI for this analysis was pre-implementation. So these are organizations that haven't yet started the implementation, but they're trying to figure out how to fix their current ERP system. So the human factor, I would argue and I would suspect, moves much higher as the implementation continues and organizations start to feel the pain of the human factor. In fact, it's actually interesting that it's as high as number 6 at this point because most organizations aren't really thinking about change management, even though they should be. But organizations we talk to are thinking about the human factor a bit more than I would have thought. So according to AI, the human factor is number 6 on our list of the most common issues that they're trying to solve with ERP systems. Number 5 on our list of the top ERP software issues that organizations are trying to solve is their consultant and vendor relationship set. So how are they managing their software vendors? How are they managing their outside consultants? How do they ensure that they have control and governance over the vendors and consultants rather than the vendors and consultants running haywire or running amok within the organization? So that piece of it, that vendor and consultant management and relationship building, is something that a lot of organizations are struggling with, and it's number 5 on our list of the top things that organizations struggle with during their implementation. Number 4 on our list of the top things that organizations are trying to solve with ERP systems is growth. How do we scale? How do we get out of these growing pains that we're experiencing? How do we ensure that we get rid of these bottlenecks and these manual processes and these inefficient ways of looking up information and rekeying information in multiple systems and looking in spreadsheets, manipulating in spreadsheets to create the outputs we need? All that stuff is highly unscalable. It's something that slows down your growth. And that's what we see with a lot of organizations. Now, I will say, if there's a bias in our data set here, it's that most organizations we talk to are high growth. Most of them are upper mid-market. Most of them are aspiring to be multi-billion-dollar global organizations. So they, more than anyone, are struggling with growth, but even our smaller and mid-sized clients are struggling with that. So it makes sense that this would be as high as number 4 on our list. So number 4 is growth amidst growing pains, and that's one of the biggest challenges that organizations are trying to solve with their ERP systems. Number 3 on the list of the most common issues trying to be solved with a new ERP system is integration and data integration. So in other words, how do we ensure that we've got integration between systems, that the different systems we use are talking to each other? Most of the organizations we talk to are organizations that are struggling with making sure that their systems are talking to one another. And if they're not, it creates a lot of other problems like manual rekeying of information, manual searching of information, and highly ineffective processes that are prone to human error. So that's one of the biggest challenges that organizations are trying to solve, is making sure that they have integration and data accessibility between their different systems, which is why many of them come to us asking for guidance on how to select and implement a new ERP system. So for that reason, that's why data integration and accessibility is number 3 on our list of the top issues that organizations are trying to solve. Number 2 on our list of the top issues that organizations are trying to solve with ERP systems is really surprising to me, and that is the cultural shift. A lot of organizations come to us recognizing that they know that putting in a new system is going to wreak havoc on their current culture. It might make their culture better, but they know it's going to be very disruptive. They know that they need to change. They need to change not just their systems, but the culture they have. They might have to think differently about how they work end-to-end processes, or how they work together and collaborate, or how they leverage AI and other tools to make their jobs more efficient. All those things create a situation where you're changing your culture, you're disrupting your culture. And yes, it's probably going to be better for you for the long term, but when you go through it, it's going to be very painful. And so that's top of mind for a lot of clients that reach out to us, is they're asking the question of how do we navigate culture and how do we ensure that we move the needle on our culture in parallel with implementing new technologies. And that's why this cultural shift phenomena and concern is number 2 on our list of the most common issues that organizations face with their ERP systems. Now, I'll be honest, this one that came in at number 1 of the most common issues that companies face was a little surprising to me. It was sort of a buzzkill. It was anticlimactic when I got to it. But what AI told me when it analyzed my notes is that the number 1 concern that organizations had was related to ERP systems themselves. In other words, what technology is it that we need? Where do we start? What do we look for? How do we implement it? So in some ways, as I'm saying, it's not that surprising, but I expected it to be something that I didn't know, or something magical or different than what I'd already suspected. But what we see here is that organizations are leading with a concern about technology, which is okay. That's usually the iceberg, the tip of the iceberg. But organizations typically are leading with, we have a problem with our systems and we want to fix it. Makes sense, but I'd say the other 9 things we've talked about in this top 10 list are more relevant or getting below the tip of the iceberg. But on the surface, this is what most organizations are most commonly concerned about, and that's why ERP systems themselves is the biggest central concern for organizations that are about to go through an ERP implementation or digital transformation. So I hope you found this information useful. I hope it shed some light on what organizations are thinking and what some of the broad patterns are that we see amongst our client base, just looking at the last several dozen organizations we've talked to. If you want to learn more about how to make your ERP software implementation successful, both quantitatively and qualitatively, I encourage you to download our 2024 Digital Transformation Report. You can find that with the QR code right here or the links below. It provides a number of independent software reviews and rankings, as well as best practices to make your implementation more successful. I hope you found this information useful and hope you have a great day. Common reasons. You look at things like GDPR or GRP. What happens is, let me say that again. Is it GDRP or GDPR or GD?